Welcome, welcome. I am Fred Wellman, host of Online VoteVets, right here. I'm Army Officer Retired. So good to have you guys. It is Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern, like we meet every week. Mark your calendar so you're here every week for this. This is a regular thing. It is Memorial Day weekend, a very special weekend to those of us who have served. We'll talk about that a little bit later. A lot of breaking news this week concerning our veterans and our military service members. Just a lot going on. We got a lot to talk about. Even cooler, the awards are coming out for organizations and ads and all the things that go into being professionals in this business. And your friends at VoteVets have won a bunch of them, which is incredible. It's all due to the guy we're about to have on the show, Jay Toscano. You're going to get to meet him finally. We're excited to kind of show you, what I love about doing this show for you guys here at VoteVets is the opportunity to kind of show you what we're all about, the behind the scenes of an organization that in many ways you may not know the details of who we are and what we do and the faces that do all the hard work behind the scenes. There's a lot more going on, like a duck, like a duck hanging on the water. There's all kinds of paddling going on underneath the water of VoteVets. We may let cool and smooth on the outside, but we work very, very hard. So I'm thrilled to get the opportunity to introduce you to some of those people. Producer JJ behind the scenes, you get to meet Jay Toscano. So it's great week to have you. We're going to let everybody gather. I know it's a holiday weekend. Hopefully a lot of you guys show up anyway. We'd love to have you here. It's good that you're joining us now. So let's just kind of get on the show. We got a lot of news to talk about. Visual impact, our awards and stuff. So the first one is, of course, we got a couple stories about a lot. Now, a big story came out today from my friend Aaron Glantz. He's an award-winning journalist out of California who did this story for The Guardian, talking about disarray at the VA. Now, what The Guardian did is they got hold of, obviously the VA is the largest integrated healthcare system. We have millions of veterans getting their healthcare from the VA system. They've been affected very directly, as you've heard us talk about a lot. The layoffs that have occurred already for Undersecretary Collins, the Doge guys canceling contracts, a lot's going on over there. Now, The Guardian investigated a review of what's called issue briefs. Now, issue briefs are filed to the central office about things that are coming out of the system and have concerns to the VA hospitals, what they call VISNs around the country. They got hold of quite a number of these issue briefs going to sit just from the last few weeks, the last month. And the thing is, it's not great. The documents paint a pretty grim picture of chaos across the VA. Now, we're hearing this from a lot of folks. As you know, here at VoteVets, we have a lot of sources out in the field in the VA. We're very proud to know so many good people out there. And we've been hearing reports, quite a bit of reports, that things are really coming apart for the VA healthcare system. And it comes from a few things. You remember, immediately upon taking office, they fired as many probationary workers as they could fire right away. And then Collins was very proud to announce he cut like 1,000 contracts that really helped veterans. This is all almost immediately with no review, no study. They just did it. And there's over 170 VA hospitals and more than 1,300 outpatient clinics, and they serve 9 million veterans, okay? This is a very big healthcare system. And some of the things they're hearing at The Guardian and from these reports are shocking. At the Danville VA Medical Center in Illinois near the Indiana border, so many nurses were resigning that the hospital administrators were forced to close the actual acute care unit to any new patients, as they don't have enough nurses to service the patients they have. Keep in mind, Danville VA in that area is a rural area. One of the reasons we support the VA medical system so strongly is because it is the only option available for many of our veterans in the areas they live, as many rural hospitals have closed. Now, so many nurses and healthcare providers have left, they can't provide that care. They have over a backlog of 2,298 unread radiological exams in Orlando, Florida, and the cancellation of a dozen rheumatology appointments in the Montrose, New York VA. In Battle Creek, Michigan, a spate of resignations and early separation offers, which they've been doing, and of course the hiring freeze, has led to a critical shortage of police officers. They can't even get people to serve as protectors and security at these VA hospitals right now. It's getting worse. They provided these findings to the folks in the VA. And of course, Peter Kasperowicz argued it's all bullshit, that there's not actually a problem. He says, here's a quote from the official government spokesman for VA. The only thing these documents show is the VA has a robust and well-functioning system to flag potential problems and quickly fix them. And of course, since this is the Trump administration, the Guardian's attempt to spin these outdated routine reports to make VA look bad is dishonest, except it isn't. These are actual reports. They have dismissed over 2,500 workers. They've canceled over 500 critical contracts to take care of our veterans. That's on top of one of the biggest issues that are causing these problems in the last month is this return to office mandate that Doug Collins pushed, forcing healthcare providers who have never had to work in an office and worked remotely since they were hired to find a place to work, often driving. Some people had to drive as far as 70 miles to find an office to work in. So that's where you go. That's where you circle back that radiological reads. Most, even in private healthcare systems, most of the people that read your radiological exams work from home. It's pretty standard in that industry now. They're not sitting in an office waiting for you to get an x-ray. They work from home. But so many of them quit because of the return to office mandate that they're short people now. So yes, the VA is doing this. It's an actual exodus they've seen, as they describe it as an actual exodus of people. Many veterans are complaining. The system's had 92% of care. Believe it or not, in a 2024 survey, 92% of veterans said they trusted their VA healthcare. The Guardian spoke with a number of veterans, and of course, we at VoteVets talked to a number of veterans who were saying otherwise. The fact is they can't get appointments. The one gentleman they interviewed lost his job. He was a contractor. He signed up to get a mental health appointment so he could try, to talk about that and his PTSD. He's yet to get an appointment since April. He can't even get hold of somebody to schedule an appointment. They keep calling him and apologizing for being unable to even schedule it. Look, folks, this isn't a coincidence. These aren't anecdotes. They've got their own paperwork showing it's falling apart. And that's all because of Doug Collins and Doge and the Trump administration. No matter how much they lie and try to lie and tell otherwise, this is it. This is great reporting from the Guardian. Aaron Glantz, he's a good friend of veterans. I've known him for many years, and we'd love to hear from you if you're seeing changes to your healthcare. We want to hear about it, so I hope you'll reach out to us. Our next story is along the same lines. I'm sure you guys heard overnight that Harvard is under attack from the Trump administration. They have decided to go ahead and attack Harvard in a number of ways because Harvard won't cooperate. Last night, of course, they announced they're going to rip the ability for Harvard to have international students, forcing some 6,000 students to have to find other means of education, which is ridiculous. Just this morning, a federal judge blocked that. But we've been watching how those cuts and attacks on Harvard, of course, are affecting our veterans' healthcare. As it turns out, as we suspected, a lot. The move to cancel these federal contracts at Harvard set off a huge internal clash at VA around medical research intended to help veterans, including projects that provide suicide prevention, toxic particle exposure, and prostate cancer screening, according to emails that the New York Times got. Once again, these complaints that go through the system have gotten in the hands of the media, and they're doing their job, which is holding them accountable. This dispute among VA officials is focused on this collaboration between the Harvard Medical School to develop, for example, a predictive model to help VA emergency physicians decide whether suicidal veterans should be hospitalized, according to some of these records. That's a huge study and something we need to know. Some veterans, we have a suicide epidemic within our veteran community. As the doctor who runs this wrote in his report to the higher headquarters that canceling this contract would result in more veteran suicides that could have been prevented. This is a May 8th email. He's asking leaders to reverse the decision to cut this contract. But John, a longtime private healthcare state, has told them that they're not going to do it. They want other institutions to do the work. So literally, they're canceling contracts and research with Harvard Medical School. It's been doing this research for years and saying, no, just find some other medical school to do it. There's no reason for it except that the administration has decided to declare war on the nation's oldest university. Again, Peter Kasparitz, the VA spokesman, is saying this, oh, nothing to see here. Move along. It's like that meme, you guys, right? Move along. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. And the truth is they're cutting contracts right and left. And that while they say it's a veterans first agenda, it's not. The tension side of the VA or the contracts show how bad this has gotten, by the way. The government has canceled roughly $2.7 billion in grants and frozen nearly $1 billion in funding for Harvard's research partners, according to the university. And the emails that the New York Times got a hold of with the VA is they're ending half a dozen contracts on a range of research projects at Harvard for the VA. Projects that directly affect you and I and veterans. If you're not aware, they said that the 600 had to be canceled. They just told them to get rid of them immediately. They told the researchers to start the termination process ASAP. So even as we speak, Veterans are being thrown out of clinical trials. They're being thrown out of prostate cancer screenings they needed, obviously. Prostate cancer, by the way, if you don't know, is a growing problem amongst veterans because of our exposure to toxic chemicals. I'll give you an example. General Ray Odierno, who commanded troops in Iraq multiple times, died of prostate cancer. There is a lot of prostate cancer in the veteran community. Anybody who served knows that. There's suspicions that it has to do with our toxic exposure. There's no reason not to believe that at this point. And they just decided, because Harvard is not cool right now with the president himself, that they're going to let veterans just suffer. And that's not in place. This is critical to our healthcare. Another one that was canceled said one guy said he'd worked on a project for the VA for roughly 5 years that helped analyze nutrition data for a large time, the diet and health of 500,000 veterans. 500,000 veteran sized study. And that was canceled to talk about diet and chronic disease. This is science that benefits everybody in America, the whole world, and it's being canceled for politics. That's what we're dealing with right now. And the really troubling part for us is, at least for the most part, you could usually trust a government spokesman and the government agency to at least try and tell the truth as much as they could. These guys not only don't tell the truth, they attack anyone that actually reaches out to them to ask questions. But the fact is, we all know the truth is the contracts are being canceled right and left. A final note on VA. Just before going on the air, one of our good friends reached out to me to let me know that apparently an agency-wide request has gone out to VA employees telling them they're no longer supposed to show their veteran status in their email signature blocks. At least 2 people are reporting that they're being told not to show their veterans in their email. This is one of the ways you knew you were dealing with a veteran at VA. We're not sure why they're doing this. Maybe it's to break the morale as they've promised to do, or maybe it's to show how many veterans, to hide how many veterans actually work at VA. I don't know, but it seems like a ridiculous thing them to worry about. But here we are with the Doug Collins VA attacking their own employees and therefore attacking veterans. Our final story before we go to our interview is just as troubling and just as important. And we're here to try and explain it to you. And that goes into, you may have heard the news this week. I actually broke it on my Substack and the New York Times and everybody else picked it up. This week, Pete Hegseth sent out a Pentagon-wide email on Wednesday inviting members of the Pentagon to attend, I think you've got a picture of the invite actually, attend an actual Christian prayer. So this says the Office of the Secretary of Defense invites you to join us at a Christian prayer and worship service at 10:30 in the Pentagon Auditorium. And there's an RSVP email. Now, this set off a lot of alarm bells for those of us who served in the military like I did for 22 years. Couple reasons. Number one, this is a cabinet level secretary who's endorsing a specific religion and holding a specific religion's prayer service during duty hours on government property. Okay? The Establishment Clause is very clear on this, and multiple lawyers have reviewed this and said it's a clear violation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, which says the government cannot establish a state religion. This is clearly an attempt by the Secretary of Defense to establish his version of Christianity as the official religion of the Pentagon when he sends this out during duty hours. The other weird part for those of you like me who have served is I was taught as a young cadet at West Point that anything an officer does, especially a commander does, is an order. We used to say commanders don't make suggestions, right? If a commander's doing it, then that's the rule. If a commander decides to blow off PT, then everybody knows they can blow off PT. If a commander decides to go somewhere, like my experience at Hawaii in the 90s, if the commanding general is really big on line dancing, well, everybody goes to freaking line dancing so they can hang around with them. In this case, whether you like it or not, the Secretary of Defense is the commanding officer of the United States military. He is the highest ranking official of the United States military. So when he's personally asking voluntarily for people to attend a Christian worship service, there is pressure upon them to attend. Now, what if you're Jewish? What if you're a Muslim? What if you're just an atheist? You're left out. That's the danger of using official religion. So the argument that we've seen pushed back on is that, well, there's chaplains, there's Christian services. We had prayer groups when I was in the military, Fred. You're completely overthinking this. That's true. But most chaplains know, matter of fact, chaplains actually get in trouble for being overly pushing their own secular version of religion, whatever it may be, right? But we have Jewish chaplains. We have Catholic chaplains. They minister to everyone in a unit. It's not a specific service for him. In this case, Pete Hegseth flew his personal pastor from Tennessee into DC from a church that's known as a Christian nationalist church. In his speech, in his prayer service, this pastor said that Donald Trump was sovereignly appointed to be the president of the United States. He invoked the president, a political leader at the Pentagon, as sovereignly appointed by God to be the president. That's very, very dangerous. Okay. This church is known for their very exclusive. Some of you in the comments, I can see it. This is very much a Christian nationalist church. They've made that very clear. The church documents that are against being a gay, lesbian. They call anyone who's gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender a perversion. It's a lot of really ugly stuff that this church believes in, that Pete Hegseth believes in. So instead of using the official Pentagon chaplain or someone from the chaplain corps of the United States military, he flew in his personal pastor. Again, this is extremely, extremely dangerous and a slippery slope. And I actually had some discussions this week with folks, and people said to me, Fred, is this really that big a deal? Let's just put it in perspective for you so you understand how we as veterans, many of us think, those who have served. What's the most dangerous thing you can imagine? Can't you imagine how dangerous it is to have the United States military turned into a Christian nationalist militia? And how do I know that's dangerous? Because Saddam Hussein turned his army into a Sunni militia that attacked their other sects. And then after Saddam was taken out of power, there was a movement to turn the Iraqi army to a Shia militia, which was also dangerous and something we had to fight. The minute your military becomes anything but an apolitical, non-religious, and secular organization to protect all Americans, it's a very dangerous place for us. Imagine if you're Jewish, imagine you're Muslim, American. Can you trust the United States military that's on their side if you know that they represent a certain sect of Christianity? Well, no, you can't. That's why so many of us have been very exercised about this movement by Pete Hegseth. Here's the most crazy part. He says this is going to be a monthly event. Every month he's going to hold this prayer service. It gets ugly. But again, officers don't make suggestions. So when the SecDef himself is inviting people to attend his personal prayer service, you can be damn sure they're going to show up. Supposedly it was standing room only in that auditorium that day. And they broadcast it live on the internal news network, the internal channel throughout the Pentagon. That is really some crazy stuff that I've never seen. And folks, I served 22 years in the Army. I've been out for 10. This is a very, very dangerous, slippery slope. So that's the news this week. Not great news, unfortunately, but we're going to keep on fighting and keep on doing our thing. So let me turn to a more positive and a more uplifting part of this conversation. I'm thrilled to have you joined now by my friend Jay Toscano. Jay is the founding partner of Backstory Strategies. He's our longtime partner at VoteVets on a host of hard-hitting ads that have moved opinion and struck the heart of our service. I'm thrilled to have Jay join us so we could talk about the amazing ads that he produced this year for us and the awards you won for him. So Jay, come on in.
All right.
There he is. Hey, Jay.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Likewise, my friend. It's been too long. We haven't hung out very much. Folks, welcome, Jay. Glad that, man, Jay, congratulations. How many awards did you win in the last week for the VoteVets ads you've done?
A whole bunch. And, so one of the things that we do it kind of in this industry, obviously, we focus, especially during election years, on like making the ads. We do a lot of ad testing. We try a lot of different variations to see what's working at the moment. And, one of the things that we know, and we know it because we kind of know it intuitively, but we've also done a lot of research, is that right now when, there's not a whole lot of trust in institutions out there or people or political figures in particular, there is a voice that does break through that voters actually do pay attention to. And that's the voice of veterans. Wow. And, we've done a lot of research on this to make sure that we are using the voice appropriately, but also as powerfully as we can. And, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been working with VoteVets. I think the first ads we made were back in 2010 around clean energy, national security. All right.
You've been here a couple of days, brother.
Yeah. And, coming into 2019, in particular 2020, we felt that that we could really kind of step up the edginess of what we were doing in taking on Donald Trump. And I think we did that pretty effectively. We were sharp. We decided that we didn't have much money, but we were going to spend, most of that year and going into the election year, really hammering him on social media with video content that was both voiced by veterans, that featured veterans, and or had the perspective and the voice of veterans kind of coming through.
Well, we worked together back in 2020, as a matter of fact. And I was a different organization then called the Lincoln Project, and we partnered on an ad with Sully Sullenberger, which won awards. We partnered on an ad with our good friends Alex and Rachel Vimman, who now work with us. Kind of funny how things work out, and we've come a long way since then. And those were very effective and powerful ads. But this cycle, I don't know. I kind of think you kind of outdid yourself, and it shows. You won like 8 awards, I know, this week, plus another 2 or 3. And I thought we'd get you on here. Maybe we could talk about some of these ads, and then kind of give the folks who watch our show an idea of, how this all develops and the backstory of these ads. Backstory. Nice plug for your organization. The backstories of these ads. And one of those, the first one, I think we'll just jump. Let's jump in with Master of the Air. It's one of my favorites because I love the show. So for those who don't remember, there was a great HBO series called Masters of the Air that featured the 8th Air Force and the bombers, the B-17 pilots and crews over Europe and in the World War II. And we actually got the opportunity to work with them. And who'd you work with on this one?
So, in this ad, we had the real great fortune of working with Jeff Crosby, the son of the original
main characters.
The main character.
Yeah. And, he was a navigator.
He's somebody who had reached out to VoteVets early in the year and said, there's a lot of focus on my dad's story right now. And, and he said, my dad is turning over in the grave, seeing his son running for re-election and what he will do to this country. And so that's an ad that, won a bunch of awards. And, like the awards is, it's kind of nice, but it's not why we do the work.
Right.
And in this case, we weren't able to beat Trump the way we did 4 years earlier, but we were able to kind of get this message up and frankly put a warning out for folks. Like, if we go down this road, democracy's at risk, and all the things that his dad and that the greatest generation fought for are really going to be up for grabs.
Let's watch it.
Hollywood called him a master of the air. To me, he was just my dad. 6 days after Pearl Harbor, Harry Crosby enlisted in the Army Air Corps to stop fascism across that ocean behind me. Dad was lead navigator for the bloody 100th Bomb Group, 8th Air Force. But at war's end, he'd flown 32 combat missions. Of the 140 airmen he deployed with, all but 3 were killed or captured. These are the men Donald Trump calls suckers and losers, the men he fought with and loved. My dad hated war, but he hated racism, anti-Semitism, and fascism even more. And he'd be horrified to see fascism raising its head in America today. Donald Trump's got a playbook to get around the Constitution, Congress, and the courts to destroy our democracy. And the checks and balances we've had, relied on in the past, are gone. He talks about installing MAGA loyalists at the top of our military to go after anyone who disagrees with him. Those he labels vermin and the enemy within. He talks about serial numbers for immigrants and mass detention camps. We've seen the likes of that before. It's everything the greatest generation fought to defeat. Listen to the people who were with him last time and won't be around to stop him again. Trump's defense secretary warns, Trump is a threat to democracy as we know it. Trump's chief of staff says Trump has nothing but contempt for the Constitution and the rule of law. Trump's top general calls him fascist to the core, the most dangerous person to this country. Even J.D. Vance got it right the first time when he called Donald Trump America's Hitler. Think about it. My dad would crawl out of his grave and back into a B-17 if that's what it took to protect our freedom. All we have to do is vote against Trump.
Man, I love that one.
One of the things I want to mention, a couple of things. One, we knew from research that Trump's chief of staff, General Kelly, all these folks who were not willing to go on camera and say what they knew about this guy, but we knew from research that what they had to say about him really could have an impact with some voters. And obviously this is like a longer version. Like we cut these down to shorter ads when we're running them on digital platforms and on TV. But I think specifically with our audiences, like we want to tell that whole story when we've got somebody. And so, you know, we're going to go up and film something. We're going to spend the hours finding the archival footage that literally is like family footage of him as a young airman,
and permission from Apple to use the actual scenes from the movie. It's just fantastic and artful. I think about it, not to blow smoke up yet, because that's what there's an art to what you do. I mean, and I've worked with you long enough to see the progression of the storytelling, and I think that's, you know, I've known your bio well enough, and like I said, I've had to write scripts with you before. You look at us. You're a storyteller at heart. It's you bring a very unique storytelling approach to what are political ads, don't you?
Yeah.
Let's look at Brothers. Tell me about Brothers next. I mean, it's a little shorter, but another great ad.
Yeah. So this is a TV spot, and this is one, and you'll see like one thing about VoteVets that I love is like we do a big range of ads. Like you can look at our ads, and they're all different because we're trying to, we know exactly who we're targeting, what's going to work with them, what the voice is, and what the style is. This is an ad that when Ruben, now Senator Ruben Gallego was running for Senate, he had a bunch of guys who had served with him in Iraq, most of whom he had not seen since 2006, 2007, who had not been all together. And there's a lot of folks who could make it. A lot of people are making ads for him. He came to VoteVets and said, "I trust you guys with these are my buddies. These are my mates. Treat them well." And because we're an independent group, he can't tell us what to do. Right. But he's essentially turning these guys over to us and saying, "Have at it." So we flew them into Phoenix. We spent about 4 days with them. We filmed 8 ads, about maybe half of them that eventually got on TV or digital. This ad in particular I love because it was literally, I had these guys coming into town. Like I said, most of them had not seen each other since they left the theater. And I said, I don't want you guys going out having beers the night before. When you walk on set, I want this to be like when you first literally see each other. And we filmed for hours with them. And again, script a lot of these ads. Obviously, that last ad I worked with Mr. Crosby to script that out. This was like in their own words, and we find that the more that we can do stuff in the actual real words of people, even if they don't get it exactly the way we might tune it in a script, it's going to be a lot more powerful, a lot more authentic.
I love it. Let's show it.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, dude.
What's up, brother? Long time, man.
It's been 20 years since I've seen you guys.
I came down here to support our brother.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of these attack ads against Ruben, and they're so far off base.
It sounds like Carrie Lake will just say anything, attacking anyone just to try and get ahead for herself.
Ruben's service is a reflection of his character.
Oh, yeah.
You go after one of my Marines, you're going to have to take on all of us.
VoteVets is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Very Marine and very natural. I mean, it's a very natural conversation. I mean, how many cameras did you have shooting that as you walk around?
Yeah, we had 3 cameras shooting that.
Wow.
Because you have to get those reactions. You never, someone's going to say something and you want to make sure you got a camera on it. And I should add, that ad won a Pollie Award just 2 nights ago for Best Independent Expenditure Campaign in the U.S. Senate last cycle.
Wow.
And also Best Use of Negative or Contrast. So like for a lot of people, when you hear negative political ad, you don't think that. You think, over the top, scary sounding voice and pictures and all of that. But that ad actually is a very negative ad because he was getting beat up and we need to push back on those attacks as effectively as we can. And again, like you do that, you have that commander, say you're going to have to come after all of us. That says it all.
And I think and what I love about work with you all this time is, and I think your experience, you're not a veteran yourself, but you've worked with us for 15 years. After a while, you understand the voice. I mean, I think the setup of that shows that you do understand how veterans think and how we behave around each other, and understanding that there's a certain camaraderie that has to be expressed. It's one of the things we talk about here on the show quite a bit, because a lot of our viewers may not be veterans. It's good to have somebody that can tell that story effectively. You do a pretty good job on that one, don't you?
Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to tell you that. You can tell me now. The next one's a little bit different, right? It's more of a press clips and more of a conglomeration ad. And that's the face of the fight ad. It's a little longer ad. That's a whole different approach, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is actually a video around the entire campaign that we did around the Doge cuts when the president did his first address to Congress. And so it's not just about ads, like a lot of what VoteVets does is on social media and bringing those real kind of authentic voices. And in this case, actually bringing people to Washington so that folks hear, whether they're political or in the media, are hearing those stories and the impact of what's happening directly. So this one actually won as Public Affairs Campaign of the Year. Also one for non-scripted documentary, advocacy and causes, and gold for political issues. So a bunch of awards, but again, it's about the whole campaign, not just about like specific ads like that last one.
Let's show face the fight.
You're lying! I'm a veteran and you don't give a about me! Shut the up! And you don't get the do this to us! You don't get to take away our rights! You don't get to take our rights! Get off of me!
When Donald Trump sicked Elon Musk on federal programs, vets started to put faces and names on the damage about to be done. The Doge tip line started gathering stories, so when Musk cut the VA and mass-fired public servants, thousands who'd served in uniform, vets were already on the move. Hundreds of fired vets shared their stories on social media, and thousands came together to organize for action. Fired federal employee veterans countered Trump's address to Congress face to face.
Meanwhile, a group of veterans fired in the federal cuts are meeting with lawmakers in Washington ahead of the speech. One of them, Air Force veteran Aline Renault, is here to tell us more about that.
Vets talked with the press, social media, influencers, content creators, podcasters to get the word out. Veterans had become the face of the fight. A six-figure campaign supported on-the-ground grassroots activities in multiple congressional districts.
This is a new ad that I think is really, really effective from the political group VoteVets.
I did not put my life on the line for some tech bro billionaire from South Africa to come in here and try to destroy our country.
There's a lot of positions you don't want to be in as an American politician, but maybe top of that list is do not mess with veterans.
MAGA leaders ran scared.
The National Republican Congressional Committee is telling members to hold no in-person town halls. I don't want to pile on here, but I thought that was lame.
Lame. Hell just caught a little chill. This fight has only begun. Vets are standing up to bad policies and calling out failures that risk national security across the mega government. We help stop Musk's millions in Wisconsin by delivering our message where voters are on the most popular podcasts across the state. We're making historic investments to elect Abigail Spanberger governor of Virginia and recruit, train, and elect hundreds of veterans to state, local, and federal office. With your support, we'll lift up the most trusted voices in America, leading with our values. That's how we win. We are VoteVets. Join us.
There you
I
go.
love that ad. Not just because I'm in it. Briefly, fly. It's just it was such a great painting of what we do. We actually had those two veterans on the show here to talk about it. And it is very powerful. It does show, one, the power of the organization, but two, why we have to use our voices. It is interesting. I know you and I have talked about this, how we as veterans have sort of found ourselves in the middle of this fight since the election, as so many things seem to be, the crossroads continues to be veterans, right? I mean, you saw the news stories before you came on camera, with VA being cut and with the religion and military. I mean, it is an important mission, and your art brings a lot to it, doesn't it? So I appreciate that. That's a lot of awards.
Yeah, and with that one in particular, I think it's important for folks who are part of this network who support it with their donations to know, it's not just about putting TV ads, up. It's about everything, like that Matt's doing with the press, that Sarah's doing on social media, the self-generated videos that folks are producing and, allowing us to recirculate for them. It's an entire campaign way beyond, frankly, what most other political groups are doing. Way beyond.
Yeah, I think that's what we talk about a lot here on the show is it's all coordinated, that these all have a piece. What I find we always end every show as saying, hey, donate because we got to pay for these ads, but also take action. And those veterans were found through our Doge tip line. As you mentioned in the top of the ad, we tell you guys here who watch the show every week, especially we love seeing your regulars, is that, there's a reason we tell you to sign up. We found those veterans and their stories through their contact to us. We want to hear your stories, and that was a great way to illustrate just how that works and how that pays out. So you helped me drive that traffic, I think, my friend, at the end of this. But it is important. I think it's so important. And local, tell us about local. The next one.
So local is a very different spot.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
a lot of the work that happens, at the foundation, the Vet Voice Foundation, is focused on advocacy around issues. Again, leveraging that important voice of veterans, and I think this it gives you a sense of how we don't have to just focus on veterans issues of particular, like people think, oh, like military issues, national security, veterans benefits and things like that. But that voice and that authenticity and the power of that voice extends far beyond the things that you naturally think of. And this is that we are running in a bunch of districts around the country right now that won a Telly Award in the policy and legislation category. And again, the storytelling and the perspective coming from the point of view of a couple of veterans.
And I love Telly Awards. So Tellys are not just political. We've won some political awards, but Telly is for visual storytelling of any kind, from documentaries to TV shows, right? It's short form videos. It's not just a political ad. I mean, that says something to the approach of storytelling that we use, that it's not just a political ad. You won an award that's actually for visual storytelling, didn't you?
Yeah. And these awards are up against, the big New York agencies.
Yeah.
And
big dogs.
And like you say, it's not a political thing at all. It's it's about making sure that, and for us, it's about making sure the reason we enter and hopefully get to win some stuff. It tells us because people are seeing all these ads. They're seeing the car ads and all the commercial stuff and companies and all of that. We got to make sure that our storytelling breaks through in that environment where people are actually seeing our ads.
Great, let's watch it.
I was in the Navy for 6 years.
I served with Special Forces. When I came back from Iraq, I found that coming out here just really helped.
There weren't many services for people coming to the national parks and forests. And so we established the Chester Hiker Hostels.
Congress needs to understand that public lands support thousands of rural economies across the country.
Small businesses like ours can only survive if public lands remain public.
My message to Congress, don't sell us out.
Yeah, very direct, because so folks don't understand the VoteVets Foundation the Vet Voice Foundation, spends their time talking about public lands, barrier national monuments, a focus. Those are very important, and they are. People have asked me before, why is a veterans organization focused on natural resources and land? Because that's it. I mean, so many of us find, it's funny. We joke, if you're in the military, any veterans watching, we go touch grass, right? and we do. It's a real thing for us to go touch grass. So it's a passion for us as an organization, especially on the foundation side, to preserve our natural resources. And that's another great ad. And so picture is another kind of a different approach as well, right? Tell me about that one.
Yeah, so picture, very, similar thing where we take on, other issues. This is one that we actually started working on last August, because we knew, Donald Trump got elected, what was going to happen. And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to get out ahead on this particular issue, because we knew that, Republicans were making a big deal about it during the election. And so on the policy side, we wanted to make sure that we were able to get some voices out there about protecting our kids and protecting trans kids in particular.
Watch it.
I'd love to show you a picture of my family, but I can't. Because there are people out there who will target one of my children simply for being who she is. I'll tell you who she is. She's my daughter, my trans daughter. And I didn't swear an oath to defend our country's freedom to have to fight for my child's freedom to be who she is. But I will fight for the freedom of every child to be who they are and every parent's right to raise them the best we can without being attacked by the people using the government to come after us. Look, I want what's best for all my children, for them to have all the opportunities just like you. And I've learned a lot about how to respect and appreciate our differences. I'm asking you, parent to parent, do the same. Please, don't make her life and the lives of so many children harder than it has to be.
I've seen these ads and they still get me. So powerful, and then all of our worst fears, many of them have been realized as we see our transgender service members and their families being targeted by this administration. So, an important story to tell. Another one's tradition. Another one I enjoyed too. And this is sort of that, this really gets right at, again, understand the military, how it's a tradition in many families, isn't it?
Yeah, and this ad in particular, this again is in Arizona with a couple of guys who served with Ruben, and they bring their story, their family story, their background to the fore here. And we wanted to make sure that we were not leaving any voters on the table. And so while like Navajo Nation is kind of spread across the state, we wanted to use like digital platforms and other platforms where we can engage with them in a very respectful way. We use their language as we open it, and we're like very careful to we engaged a lot of folks to make sure that like the imagery, the words that we're using, the script on screen was like spot on. There's a lot of different dialects of the Navajo language, and we want to make sure that we got it right. And again, doing it in their voice, and also in the most beautiful place in the world.
Yeah, and Ruben worked hard. He reached out. I think he visited every single one of their villages. We've had to hike in for once. Let's watch this one.
Yat e shidene John Bylon in she. Yat e Chessen Bylon yenishe. Kitin chitni nisle do kisani bashichi. To heglini deshe do kisani desanale. Service and sacrifice. A tradition we've kept from the American Revolution to the Code Talkers through today.
It was in our service that we fought alongside Ruben Gallego, a brave warrior we trusted with our lives.
In Congress, Ruben has worked hard for the Navajo Nation. He comes here, he listens, and he takes action.
Ruben wrote and passed the new laws improving tribal health care.
He wrote the bill protecting tribal women and children from kidnapping and violence.
And he's led the fight to clean up our drinking water for generations to come. Ruben Gallego will be a great fighter for Dene in the United States Senate. VoteVets is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Yeah, it's great, and it is such a cultural hallmark of that community to be a part of our service, and we can't ignore it. That's a great one. I love it. What a beautiful place. And they really did. Ruben did a great job of reaching out to that community very directly, and again, like you said, not to leave any votes behind. So, just a fascinating story. And this one goes back. The next one we go to kind of goes back. I think this is from the visit, right? The same veteran visit to DC, but a different angle on it, right?
So this is the actual ad that we ran on TV and on digital platforms as part of the Doge effort. We ran this, so after the president spoke, Congress went on recess for a couple of weeks, and we ran this in a bunch of districts around the country, targeted, with specific members of Congress named at the end.
That's it.
I was at Barnes & Noble's with my 2 children, 4 and 10, and my husband, and I received a text from my coworker, and he said, "Have you seen the email?"
I served in the military for over 33 years, just accepted a new position in the VA, come into the office, fire up my computer, and I come back, and there's an email sitting there for me.
I knew then. I knew what was coming.
I have not had a single negative performance review in my 10 years.
It feels like veterans are being personally attacked by Elon Musk.
I did not put my life on the line for some tech bro billionaire from South Africa to come in here and try to destroy our country.
We're going to bear a lot of this cost with rising costs, inflation.
I'm literally donating plasma to buy eggs.
And our congressperson does absolutely nothing.
Stop Elon's war on veterans now.
You know, again, as I said earlier, these are real veterans that we found through our tip line and reaching out to us, and they're very personal stories. And I kind of like that roundtable style too. It's a great way to kind of have lead a conversation and see what comes out of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. And, at the end of those ads, that was obviously kind of like a generic national ad, but we put up the names and faces of the members of Congress who we're targeting. Because I think that at the end where you see like fired by Elon Musk, fired, all these veterans fired, and you tag it to these guys and say like, you're responsible for this. Like, you guys can try to walk away as much as you can, but these are folks in your districts who you're affecting with these policies. And
hold them accountable for it. They need to be held accountable. They're avoiding the accountability, trying to deny what's happening, but we see it happening. It's incredibly frustrating. I love this last one. I think it's a great place to wrap up. It's a little bit different. The grumpy old vets one. I love this one. What do you think? Tell us about grumpy old vets.
Sure. So this is an ad. We do a lot of support for veterans who are running for office, and this is just one example. We do try to do ads that are targeted with a specific mission. And this ad in particular, we saw from the polling that this veteran who we're supporting, who, pretty well known, pretty high name identification, people did not know he was a veteran, right? They knew about his brother. They knew about, kind of some stuff that happened a few years ago. They did not know that he was a veteran. And we needed to nail that home, targeting veterans, military families around the district. And, and again, you see how we do this in an ad. Like you have to nail it and nail it and nail it and nail it. So people really walk away with that one thing that you want them to understand that we knew that was going to change some votes.
Yeah. Let's watch it.
This guy Vindman, I really like him.
Why is that?
Well, first of all, he's an Army veteran.
Told you a million times there's nothing wrong with that.
Navy guy.
Yeah.
Thing is, Vindman joined the Army to pay back the country that took his father in.
Well, you have to respect that.
And Vindman will stand up to extremists. He won't let them cut Social Security and Medicare, and he'll take on drug companies that are profiting at our expense.
All right. The Army vets got my vote.
And that's not an official VoteVets ad. That's one you guys did, and for again one of our candidates that we have endorsed. But it's a great example of what you could do, how to tell the story of a veteran story, right?
Exactly. And and again, it was like we had these two veterans who were recruited, who volunteered to come out and film an ad. They had no idea what they were getting into, and we sat down with them and had a good conversation. They had this rapport between the two of them, one Army, one Navy. Which, for us was kind of a little bit of a stand-in for like Democrat, Republican, Independent. It doesn't really matter who you are, what side you're on. We want you to vote for this guy because he's a veteran. And man, they just nailed it. Gotta say.
Yeah. That's how it works. And that district, I know that district well. Obviously, I know Eugene is a friend of mine, and it's a very heavily concentrated veteran district. I mean, there's just a lot of us dudes out there, so it hit really well. It was a good ad, and he was up against a veteran, so it's great to have a conversation. Well, Jay, I've taken a lot of your time. I appreciate this. Congratulations on the awards, well deserved. You put a lot of hard work in to earn these. Keep up the good work. I'm sure we'll be running more of your ads every week. So thanks for everything you do for us and do for the community. Again, this is a perfect example of what we tell the folks here who watch the show. We don't all have to be veterans to support the community, be allies, and understand the needs of our veterans. And you're the living example of that. And I appreciate your work.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon. Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon. Oh man, this is just great. I really appreciate everything. I mean, it was remarkable as these awards started rolling in this week, and I thought somebody said, we should do these in the show. I'm like, let's just make the show that and talk about it. So that was just great to talk about, and you got to see the kind of work we do, the wide variety of work we do, and where your donations go. This is what we do. We organize. You saw us last week's show. We talked about our town hall with Pete Buttigieg in Cedar Rapids. We've talked about our candidates that we've endorsed, like Abigail Spanberger and the hard race she's running in Virginia. Virginia to take over the state, take it back. And then you see these ads that are produced. You can see those aren't cheap. Jay is an artist, and you heard we flew veterans into Phoenix. I mean, that's the kind of stuff. So we want you to know kind of that you're not going into a black hole. You're not supporting giant salaries. I assure you that. But this is the art and the work we do to support our democracy, support veterans. Of course, veterans, our service members, and our national security. So you guys are a big part of that. I wanted to wrap the show up on an important topic. I think it's very important. And so it's Friday, you guys. And here we are. We're going into Memorial Day weekend. And for those of us who served, Memorial Day weekend is a very special weekend for us. It matters for those of us, especially in the global war on terror. Very few of us can stand here and say we haven't lost a friend or a second acquaintance to either service, accidents, illness, whatever it may be. And it's so important that we here's a great statement from Woodrow Wilson, remember them this weekend. But there's something I always say too. Every one of the guys I know, and I lost soldiers. My first soldiers I lost in combat were during Desert Storm. I lost a wonderful scout crew during the air war when they crashed their aircraft, and we lost them. Hal Reichel, C-2 Hal Reichel, and Specialist Mike Daniels. I think of them often, especially on Memorial Day weekend. But here's the thing I know about both those gentlemen and all the others I've lost. They want you to have a hot dog and a beer and enjoy your weekend. I mean, we're just not, most of us, we appreciate respecting it, but Memorial Day, while Memorial Day is not Veterans Day, Memorial Day is not Armed Forces Day, Memorial Day is one we remember those we lost, and for those who made the ultimate sacrifice in uniform. And again, the ones I know, they're going to want you to clink that beer bottle in the backyard, okay? They're going to want you to sit around the pool, have a laugh, remember them as joyous people, and remember them for the people they were and the work they did and the service they left behind. That's what we do on Memorial Day. I'll be doing that this weekend. We're going to try and take most of the weekend off, and again, kick back by the pool, go hiking. I'm going to hit the road today and go hiking, enjoy this nature that brings us back grounded to what we believe in, and remember why those who sacrifice serve. They serve the nation. They raise their right hand and uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And even as we face tough political times, and this is a political organization, we also remember those who served and honor their sacrifice. So this Memorial Day weekend, from all of us at VoteVets, we hope you'll remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, the last full measure of devotion, as the great Abraham Lincoln called it, and still honor them by, have a good weekend. Remember them with joy. Don't remember them with sorrow, because that's how every single soldier I know would want it. I assure you. I promise you that. So don't be salty. I promise you that. And finally, as always, we have to talk about this part. It's just so very important. We could use your support. If you go to our website, you can learn more about what VoteVets does at votevets.org. Again, that's votevets.org. We're followed everywhere. All of our social media is VoteVets. There's two buttons there. You can see them on the screen right now. One is donate. That's what supports this work and helps us continue to support ads like Jay's and others. And then next to that, where the big arrow is the take action button. I highlight that one especially today because you saw ads with veterans. You saw ads with actual people who've reached out to us, have become part of our Take Action community, and we reach out to them and say, hey, are you in Arizona? We'd love to talk to you about the impact of this legislation on you, or wherever you may be. So if you want to be part of this, we're not your traditional VSO. There's no chapters, but this is your way to be part of it. So either give us a donation and get on our email list, and then join that Take Action button and be a part of our community so we can help and move the needle for the important work that we do with veterans, service members, and for our national security. Having said all that, I do want to wish you guys a very good Memorial Day. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I hope you're able to spend it with family and loved ones. Remember those who served and never forget why they did so. The important nature of the United States of America, truly a wonderful nation full of wonderfully good people. We will find our ways through this difficult time together. We'll keep up the fight. I know here at VoteVets, we're going to do that. You see some of the people who do it. So with that, I'm going to let you go for the week. I am Fred Wellman. This is Online VoteVets. We're here every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll mark your calendar. Join us live. Tell your friends. Tell your neighbors. Join us right here on all of our social networks and my own. I can't wait to see you again next week. Have a great and happy Memorial Day.